Welcome to the Voyager podcast, hosted by Chris Fick and Brad Alexander. A podcast about authentic faith in unlikely places. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We hope you're encouraged. Hey, welcome back to Voyager Season 2. My name's Brad Alexander. I'm here with Mr. Chris Fick.
Hello?
We've tried to carry on the intro quirkiness, but I think we've reached the end of what we can do with that.
Right.
But
hello.
we have a special guest today, and I'm going to have Pastor Fick intro him, and we're really excited about it. So, Chris?
Yes. A fellow Chris is who we have today with us. This Chris Price is a good friend of mine. It's near and dear to my heart. We met, 5 years ago? 6 years ago? Something
5 years,
like that?
yeah. Mm-hmm. 6, yeah, around there.
And I just saw God do a dramatic transformation in Chris's life and the life of his family. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorite stories. I actually got to fly to North Carolina to see him get ordained. They flew me out.
So good.
And we got to hang out. And so we've been looking forward to this, and they happen to be in town, so we get to do it around the table together, which is the best.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Say hi, Chris.
What's up, guys?
So, yeah, we're stoked. You're someone that we've talked about having on, and the opportunity. We could do a phone call, but it's always cooler to be able to hang out at a table like this.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll definitely
we're just
help.
stoked. You have like the look, man. Certain people have the face tattoos where I'm like, I get it. I wish I had a face tattoo.
Yeah.
Other people, I'm like, that.
You're a SoundCloud rapper.
Questionable.
yeah, the Post Malone thing.
That's funny.
going
I've
on.
heard that before. Like, oh, you're like a sound. Nah.
Right.
But yeah, I think the way we usually like to start these is just to go back to the beginning and get to know kind of who someone is and what makes them them, and then get into formative years and how God grabbed a hold of them and what God did after, So let's go back. I think you grew up in North Carolina, I've heard.
Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, but right
South
there,
Carolina.
yeah.
Okay. So can you kind of give us the view from 10,000 feet? What was like your childhood like and growing up in South Carolina?
Like a pretty traditional American middle class upbringing. Both parents in the home. Steady job, steady employment, good. One sister, 3 years older than me, good grandparents, really active in my life. So just a really if you had that cookie cutter, this is American life, like in the 40s or 50s that were on the flyers that everybody was advertising, trying to push that kind of agenda. That was really kind of it, real just semi-suburban, rural area, small town. So it's good.
What is like growing up in Orange County?
Yeah.
It's like, growing up in a small town is probably like the further, like I grew up in the suburbs, but I'm sure like influence. What is growing up in a small town like?
So I'd say like y'all's surfing, skating, that whole scene would translate more fishing, hunting.
Oh, cool.
Four-wheeling, that type of style.
The y'alls have come back since Chris moved back to the South. So if you can hear some y'alls,
you'll get a few for sure.
I love it. Yeah. Is it like communities like that where like what you see in movies where everyone kind of knows each other, or is it not really like that?
Greenville wasn't really that way. Where we live now definitely is. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those smaller areas where you see everybody that you know. So like if you slip up and make a mistake, everybody knows about it. And so you're kind of the talk of the town for a little while.
Go see everybody at the Bojangles.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Bojangles or Calvert's little diner there where you had some grub too.
I loved the Bojangles, man.
Bojangles is the bomb, dude.
I'm craving it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hunting and fishing. So is that what you were into?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Hunting, fishing, raced motocross. So I was kind of in that. But that's not really, I guess, stereotypical for that area more, but definitely the hunting, the fishing, the outdoor type lifestyle for sure.
Did you have a religious foundation as a kid?
So, I grew up going to church. I went to church with my parents, went to church with my grandparents, but there was no root or anything. There was no relationship. I think it was really light. More, my parents' background is more the liberal side of Christianity, so it wasn't really pushing anything on people or really trying to delve into truth or doctrine very deep. Just more of kind of, it's more like a social club really aspect type dynamic there. And then my grandparents was a real traditional Southern Baptist church, where I know the gospel was preached, but was just kind of hanging out there. Had family friends and stuff like that we all knew. My grandparents' parents had actually planted that church.
Oh, no kidding.
So yeah, I was definitely around the culture, but never in it.
That's what I've kind of heard about the Bible Belt is it's very common to like go to a church, but a lot of people are like, but theology wise, like I didn't know what was going on. It was more just like, that's what you do because that's what you do.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, I mean, everybody went to a church. I mean, all of your friends went to a church. I mean, that was what you did on Sunday morning. Very, very much the cultural aspect of Christianity.
What were high school years for you like?
I guess I was like a stereotypical jock. I mean, played football, was, on track, had a lot of friends, hung out, partied, drank, smoked, experimented with drugs, started getting into that kind of stuff. I mean, very typical Friday, Saturday nights. You were always at parties, with kegs and drinking and chasing girls and just living the again, really, it's almost cliche when I look back on it. Like it really was the cookie cutter, like American upbringing on the East Coast and the South. I mean, that was very much, I think one thing that stands out differently there for me is the family dynamic. You see it a lot more like in Los Angeles or Latino cultures where the families are real close, the cousins, the grandparents, the parents, like everybody's there together. So there was definitely that aspect of things growing up that I remember from my childhood.
Yeah, that's interesting. Carlsbad, maybe I've noticed a little more. South Orange County, though, like you don't even know your neighbors.
Right.
Like no one talks to each other.
Right.
Everyone's like, I pull into my garage, I shut the garage from my car. Like, don't talk to me.
Yeah. Well, when we were stationed here, I mean, that's exactly how it was. Even on base, like I didn't know who lived next door. I didn't really care at that point. It was just, this is my home. Leave me alone.
Yeah. So you were in the military. Was that like right out of high school? Or?
No, actually, I got a job welding right out of high school. So we'll back up a little bit. Was a Harley mechanic for a few years. I actually got certified as a Harley mechanic right when the Motorcycle Mechanics Institutes were coming out. So that was kind of like the pipeline that I was going to go down. But I was already working in our local Harley dealership at the time, wiping down bikes when the mechanics got done working on them. And our shop foreman heard that I was looking at going to the Institute, and he's like, well, we'll just certify you in-house like we've always done. That translated into watching like 96 VHS videos that were 3 hours long a piece and then taking written tests and sending them into Harley. But nonetheless, I mean, I was a certified Harley mechanic before I graduated high school, but did that for a little bit. Wasn't making a whole lot of money. It was fun, but then the actual lead foreman for the shop pulled me aside one day and was like, is this really what you want to do with your life? I'm like, dude, I'm riding other people's Harleys for a living and turning wrenches on. It's pretty legit to me. He's like, well, I'm only making, this amount of money and I've been doing it for 35 years. So you might want to look at something else. And so went down to Charleston, welded for a while. So it was probably 3 years after I graduated high school, I ended up enlisted in the Marine Corps.
That's like actually really cool that he took you off to the side like that.
Yeah.
Just to say like, hey.
It really was. Yeah. Cause I mean, I loved it. Like this was what I was going to do with my life. I was going to turn wrenches, ride Harleys, and that was it. But yeah, he was really gracious. It's always stuck out to me too, cause he was a really good mechanic, very well respected by the shop and stuff. I always looked up to him. He taught me a lot about wrenching on bikes. And, that one day at lunch, he was like, you sure about this, dude? Like, you really want to try to raise a family on this and do this for your life? Like, you're young. You can still pick something different. You can do go a different road. And so that's what I ended up doing.
I imagine that motorcycle culture, like a lot of cultures, like skateboarding culture, and people are like, I just want to work in skateboarding. And it's like, dude, that career can be really hard.
Yeah.
Only so many people can make money doing it. It's like 1%. The rest is people struggling, making no money just to work in the culture.
Yeah.
Is motorcycle culture kind of like that, where it's like
very
a
much
fun
so,
scene to hang around?
Well, and during that time, that was when on Discovery Channel, they had West Coast Choppers, and then they had the biker build-offs that were kind of coming onto the scene and everything. And so that was kind of like, that's what I aspired to. Like I said, I grew up racing motocross, and so always had an affinity for anything with two wheels. Like I loved it. I can remember seeing the first mob of Hell's Angels when I was in like elementary school in Greenville, South Carolina, and being like, that's totally rad. Like they had the huge death head flag on the rear bikes, and you're just like, that looks legit. Like I want to be a part of that. And so just had always been drawn to that culture, but very much so. Like, I mean, it's like you said, there's only so much space for people to really have a platform in that industry because there's only really so much refining that you can do. And I mean, even those guys, you look at guys like Jesse James and Billy the Kid and other guys that were formidable in those years, they're nowhere to be seen anymore. I mean, it's already a new group of individuals. I mean, Roland Sands has done a pretty phenomenal job of keeping a name for himself and still building bikes. It's definitely one that's more challenging to really get up there and make any kind of, formidable income or name for yourself for sure.
So you continued welding for a bit, but ultimately...
Yeah, ultimately enlisted.
Enlisted. Was that a big decision for you?
It was. I mean, in high school, we had a recruiter that was a scout sniper in the Marine Corps, and I always looked up to him. Always, on lunch breaks and stuff, he'd be in the hall, handing out pamphlets, trying to recruit kids, and he would always talk to me and my best friend at the time. So we'd hang out with him like every day that he was there, and he told us all the stories. That was when Iraq and everything had really kind of kicked off. So he had all kinds of war stories and pictures and. So it was always kind of enticed into that realm. And then when the company I was working for was building MRAPs, so the big mine-resistant armor-protected trucks that the military uses overseas, like Afghanistan, Iraq. So I was building those. But, the government switches contracts pretty quickly. So within a year and a half of working there, they had lost some contracts. The war in Iraq had kind of shifted over to Afghanistan. They weren't using them as much there. And so I got laid off. And at that point, I was just full-blown partying. I mean, college at Charleston has its reputation. It definitely is an accurate depiction of it. It's a very big party school, and I had friends that were in the school. And so I was basically living that college lifestyle without being in the college. Yeah. And so when I got laid off, it was just all day drinking every day and not really doing a whole lot with myself. And just woke up one morning, was kind of tired and fed up with it. I was like, I'm going to do something. And I had two buddies that slept on my couch in my apartment, and I walked out. I was like, I'm going to go join the Marine Corps today. I'll see you guys later. And I literally went to the recruiter's office. I was a dream for a recruiter because he didn't have to sell me on anything. I was like, I'm enlisting. Like, just get me in to boot as soon as you can. Make sure it's a combat MOS and we're good. And 2 months later, I was at boot camp in Parris Island, South Carolina.
Man, there's like a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I don't think that gets talked about enough though, because I can relate so much to like my friends are in college, not all of them, but I'm not. But justifying my behavior is like, these are college years.
Yeah.
I don't go to class.
Totally.
But like we're all partying and experimenting and
Yeah.
getting crazy. And it's like a lot of people died in those quote unquote college years from drinking and driving or accidents or drug overdoses. And it's like, it was such a justification as like, oh, kids are going to be kids, college years. Right. It's like, man, like going to classes to get a degree and partying. We need to separate those two.
It's so ironic, right? I mean, it's like you're supposed to be going here to get this formidable education so that, a company or organizations will know you're a reliable, dependable person. But then on the other side, like you just stated, the culture is also signing off on, just find yourself while you're there, figure it out, enjoy it, have fun.
It's like fraternities and sororities and stuff. You're like, I hope they join that. You're like, do you know what's going on there?
Totally,
yeah. I remember I worked on a college campus, and I was just like, dude, these are the ones that we're all like aspiring to be.
Right.
This is where you all want us all to go. Like,
it's so weird.
It's interesting.
Well, I can even remember the guys that I knew that went to college at Charleston, but then we had others that didn't. Some of my other friends that would hang out with us and roll around, and we would literally just walk up and down the street until we hear loud noise coming from a house, and we just go inside the house. I mean, I think almost every single one that we'd go into, we'd end up getting into fights with people because they were more than likely fraternity parties or sorority parties, and they didn't want you to do anything.
No, they just want girls to show up.
Yeah, they just wanted girls to show up. We're like, dude, I'm going to drink from your keg while we're here. So
ultimately, this lifestyle is not making you happy.
No, not at all, man. No.
And you wake up and you're like, I want something different from my life. And joining the military seems like kind of like a path out.
A step in the right direction.
Yeah,
it seemed like, well, you'll do something, it'll get me away from, the drinking so much and, give me some discipline, maybe a skill. I'll get to see things. So many people that I even talked to after was in, well, why'd you join? Well, I wanted to see the world. It's like, well, the worst parts of it, because that's where you're going with us. But Yeah, definitely. I felt like that would be a positive step in the right direction, especially getting away from the drinking and the partying as much. But little did I know that, the Marine Corps was established in a bar in Tun Tavern, Philadelphia. So it's very much a part of the culture there too.
Was your time in the military what you thought it would be, or was it like eye-opening? Or
I
it seems
think
like a lot of people have different outlooks, and maybe some of that depends on what tours you did or what
Yeah.
war zones you're in or whatever. But was it what you expected?
I think I got exactly what I signed up for. Like I mentioned, when I told the recruiter, I said I want a combat MOS. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be infantry, but I want to be a combat MOS. I ended up getting to be a forward observer, so a scout, which was very much, in the mix of things, basically just an overeducated grunt. I mean, I just had a radio in my hand and could talk to indirect fire assets of aircraft or artillery or mortars, and get those effects on target. And my deployment, I got to do exactly that. I mean, I was in an extremely kinetic area of Afghanistan in 2010. We had just done a big push into that area. Nobody had ever been there before, and so we were kind of the first boots on the ground in that arena, and it was very, very hostile. I think the longest period we went without getting shot at was like 13 days during Ramadan. Outside of that, I mean, it was a daily thing, So
Wow.
in that sense, you're kind of like, okay, cool. Like I'm actually doing my job. That's one thing I can say about being in a combat MOS is that, you spend all of this time training. I mean, that's you spend 2 or 3 years just getting your foundation of your MOS and different abilities or tactics and techniques or even honing in on specialty parts of your MOS or even branching out and going to other specialty training schools or jump school or sniper school or any of those things that you have the opportunities afforded to do. And so finally you get to go into the arena where you actually get to put it into practice. So yeah, I mean, I got exactly what I asked for. Now were the results of it exactly what I wanted? No, not at all. I mean, it's a struggle till to this day, but the Lord has really refined a lot of it and uses it, obviously, to help a lot of others that have gone through similar situations and backgrounds. I've got so many friends and brothers that I was either stationed with or deployed with, who still today that they'll reach out to me at random times, and they're not even professing believers or followers, but when times are hard, they're calling me to ask me to pray for them. I mean, so it's really kind of cool to see how the Lord has used that in turn. And even with my wife, she's got some PTSD from other scenarios, but the Lord uses that for her and I to understand each other. So it's been pretty cool.
Because she is in the military, also in the Navy, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. And you ended up getting hurt.
Yeah. My back, head injuries, TBIs. Yeah.
So you ended up being discharged.
Yeah, I got a medical retirement 2016. Yeah, so after 8 years.
8 years is a long time, though.
Yeah, it was.
How many tours was it? 3 to Afghanistan?
One to Afghanistan. I had several around the South Pacific.
Okay.
While I was stationed in Okinawa too, and the Lord was really gracious too after that. Once you get any kind of substantial injury or even a mental stamp as far as PTSD, you're no longer deployable for a combat MOS. And I had a match sergeant that really looked out for me and ended up getting me a gig down at Coronado at the schoolhouse down there. So I was able to stay in an extra 3 years after that point. And so that really was a blessing because that the Lord used that for them to really end up getting the medical retirement, which has been huge as far as even ministry is concerned at this point moving forward, because it's freed me up to not have to worry so much about the financial aspect of providing for my family and making sure that they get what they need, because my retirement does a pretty good job of doing that.
Whoa, what a blessing.
Yeah.
There's something about like when someone dies, it forces you to face mortality that like everyone's time will be cut short at some point, however long that is. When you're in a situation where like you're getting shot at all the time and the longest duration's like 13 days,
Yeah.
that's gnarly. Do you find yourself like day to day, like coming to terms with like, today could be a day where something doesn't go in my favor? Is that something, or do you have to push that out and just get the job done and not think about stuff like that?
That's a good question. I think that I prayed every day. I really do think I prayed every day. I don't remember. I think before every patrol, I kind of had a ritual that I would do. I would pray, and then I would listen to Rage Against the Machine, and then we'd go on patrol. So it's this weird kind of like dichotomy going on. But yeah, no, it was the old saying, "There's no atheists in foxholes." For sure. I don't think that I talk. Even atheists, professing atheists, I can remember because I thought I was a Christian. I was like, yeah, I'm sure I'm saved. I know it was on my dog tags, right? I mean, that makes it a real thing. And so I always thought it was ironic. But even when we were in country or in environments like that, they definitely people become a little more spiritual in their outlook for sure.
8 years, and then you end up in San Diego.
Yeah, so we were. I was stationed in Okinawa for 3 years, and then got put to Camp Pendleton. So like middle of 2011, and then was here up until my wife retired in 2019.
When you come back from Afghanistan and everything, like what is your day-to-day life like? Like, what is the future? Are you just like, I'm a military guy and this is what I'm gonna do, and like.
So I had opportunities to go in the private sector, so to do some contracting work. It obviously would have entailed me being overseas a lot more. And at that point, I had met my first wife. We had already had 2 kids, had our third, and then, I knew I wanted to be around my kids. Things didn't go well with my now ex-wife at that point in time, but I knew that I wanted to be there for my kids. I knew I had a lot of guys that had been in, for over a decade and saw how their families struggled with them being gone. I mean, you necessarily have to be gone in order to do your job at that point. And so I didn't necessarily want to do it. And I think the Lord even used a mentor of mine early on in the Marine Corps who I really respected, I think he had done 8 or 9 deployments, 8 of those to Iraq, 1 of those to Afghanistan. Just a real salty dude. I mean, he knew his craft, was really good at being a Marine and everything that came with that in country. And I really looked up to him and admired him. And he had ended up getting out before me, a couple years before I was medically retired. And I remember talking to him a few times when I was able to get a hold of him, or he was back in country for a brief moment and then would go back out with the agency that he was working with. And I'd never heard it. Sometimes you can talk to men that have been in situations or circumstances like that for too long of a period. And it's beyond a hardening. It really just starts to mortify their souls entirely. And I could hear that in his voice. And he was even telling me, he's like, yeah, dude, don't do this. And again, this was a guy that had already deployed almost 10 times while he was in the Marine Corps. So always had looked at him as, this barrel-chested freedom fighter. I mean, just a war fighter. Like, he was good at this. This is what he did. And then he was telling me not to do this. And so I think I look back and I see all these little roadblocks that the Lord put in place so that I wouldn't take that turn, or I wouldn't take this turn. And that was kind of how he kept me out of that, because I really didn't know what I was going to do at that point. When your craft is violence and using a certain skill set that's not useful outside of that context, then what do? You kind of lose your identity at that point. And so that's kind of where I found myself in those last couple of years, knowing that I was going to be, because the retirement process, I think, took almost 2 years total. It's a long process. I think they've kind of streamlined it a lot more since then. At that point, they were starting to iron out things, because there was such a backup of guys that they could no longer serve. They needed to be medically retired and continue to be taken care of and provided for their service. And so they've kind of streamlined that now, but it took a while. And so during those couple of years, I really didn't know what I was going to be doing with myself. And that's kind of when the MC culture, even a few years before that, had kind of started taking a role. That same mentor that told me not to was also the same one that brought me into the MC world.
I've heard that from a few guys that did tours or whatever, that they're like, I have all this knowledge that was useful to staying alive.
Yep.
And I know all these things that you only learn when you're trying to hide from, across enemy lines, or trying to do this or that. And you come back and it feels like no one cares.
Yeah.
you come back and it feels like general society is like, yeah, whatever, get on with it.
Very much so, yeah.
Like, go find a job. No one wants to hear about it. Cool. You were over there. Or, you might get one of the two extremes. Either people that are like, thank you so much for your service and like appreciate you like putting yourself on the line, or you get people that are very insulting and offensive, and it can go either way, right?
It's funny because that reminded me of C.S. Lewis, A Grief Observed. That was one of the things that he mentioned about when he had lost his wife, that it was that double-edged sword. You were either kind of grieved when someone did bring it up and spoke to you about it, but then you were also grieved when somebody didn't bring it up and didn't speak about it. So you're kind of like, you're living in this purgatory of, well, why don't people appreciate it? But then, well, leave me alone. Like, I don't need you to tell me or affirm what I did. And I've also always tried to be very careful about even mentioning that, because you look back at our brothers from Vietnam and that time period and the things that they went through and the way that the culture treated them. I mean, these were men that didn't have a choice. They were forced to go and fight this war. And then thanks to the media and the way that the culture was going at the time, now they were coming off planes and having to run into a bathroom and change their clothes just so they wouldn't be identified as having served at all. So I can't imagine being in...
That's insane.
Yeah, like I can't imagine being in their shoes and coming back where it wasn't that you were unappreciated or no one cared, but it was that you were hated and you were identified as a baby killer or somebody that was doing all these things. But it's like, dude, the government's the one that sent us over there. The government was the one who was pushing this agenda. Like, these were just guys that had to do what they were told. And if they didn't, they were going to prison or they had to flee the country. I mean, it's just really...
That's like where the Hells Angels came from.
Yeah.
It was like a lot of the guys that came back from like...
It is, yeah. That's the whole MC culture. I mean, around World War II, these guys came back and they didn't belong to society anymore.
And they didn't. Some of them didn't want to belong,
right?
But then a lot of it's like, look what the damage that's been done.
Yeah,
and so that's like sometimes people don't understand that. We've talked about that a lot with all kinds of gang culture, hardcore scene. It's the same thing. It's like where do I belong? Where do I find my identity? Yeah. Where can I find a family that like will accept me as I am in a sense? You know, and so that's interesting because coming back from that, especially having a camaraderie with guys who've been through it with you, that other people just don't get it.
Yeah. Well, and in the MC culture, hoping that you find this brotherhood of guys that they'll go toe to toe with you in a gunfight, like they'll stand shoulder to shoulder with you, they'll be there. And so like you're saying, we're created for community. We were talking about that earlier, and you're created to have that, assurance and affirmation and accountability, but then also the backup, right? We always want to have that assurance of, if I pick up the phone and call this person, I know they're going to be there. And that's what all these cultures are supposed to. I mean, that's how they function. That's how they thrive and operate. And going back to the skill set aspect, that was the MC culture. Well, violence is rewarded in this gang life. I mean, that entire, the hardcore scene, whatever it is, violence is something that is necessary and is useful. It helps me maintain my dominance in this territory, or it helps me, make a name for myself. And it's just really that machismo, bolstering, chest bumping culture that, everybody's trying to pick a fight to see which dog is bigger.
As human beings, we all do this to an extent because, whereas Chris, that was the hardcore scene for you, and me for a time, and the skateboard scene, I've seen it in corporate culture too.
I was just going to say, yeah.
The guys that come back from the weekend and want to like one up each other on who drank more or, got with more women over the weekend or who has higher sales. Yeah. It's the same. It comes from the same place in our heart. So we can like rationalize like, oh, gang member or thug, this or that. It's like, it comes from the same place of trying to identify, trying to relate to, trying to validate yourself. Because deep down, we all want appreciation and community.
Yeah.
It's just how you get that varies person to person. Some people, it's performance-based. How much they sold. Some people, it's how much they can bench.
Yeah.
Some people, it's how hard they can fight. Some people, it's how good their dating life is. Or, college kids, it can be how much you can drink or who did the longer keg stand. But I think there is a degree of, especially in men, of like wanting to find people that you relate with and wanting to prove yourself to them.
Yeah. pride expresses itself in a multiplicity of ways,
Yeah.
It really, because you have soccer mom culture, you have CEO culture, you have gang culture, you have car culture, you have bike. I mean, it really is. It's
travel baseball culture.
Yeah. I mean, it's just manifesting itself in a different form, but at the root of it, it's pride. I mean, we want to exalt the God of self versus exalting the only God.
Yeah. And, even with kids' baseball or things, sometimes you see a dad being overly hard on their kid or something, and you're like, where's this coming from? And it's like, it's coming from.
I feel like in the South, that's so prevalent too. Like that in student ministry, that was like the biggest battle that I had, was trying to get parents to understand, you're the one that's modeling and setting the tone for this. So if your child's not expressing an interest, well, what's your interest? And they don't like that. If parents don't want to be held accountable for their role in the formation of their children's faith and their biblical worldview. And so sports was always at the crux, man. I mean, it was always one of those things where it's like, well, the parents that brought the kids to me that were, struggling with drugs or sexually active or just outright rebelling against all authority altogether were the exact same parents who were either working so much they were never around their children, or they were around their children, but it was for sports. And so it's like, okay, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Well, what's your family worship look like? And you always get that kind of sideways, like, huh? Well, are you opening the word with your child at home? Are you the one that's showing them and modeling them the necessity of gathering with the saints on a Sunday morning for worship? Or are you setting that tone and example there, or are you setting that tone and example somewhere else? And a lot of times in the sports arena, that's where it was expressed.
Let's talk about your introduction to the MC culture. So it came from one of your mentors in the Marine Corps, you said?
Yep. Yeah.
And how did that look? Did he bring you around certain guys that were in it, or?
So we were, I had known him in MOS school. We had kind of parted ways a little bit, and then we got stationed together again when I came to Pendleton. He was here. And he was a part of an up and coming club, was already a member of it. He already knew me, my background. So it would have been a great fit. I mean, it was a perfect fit.
You worked on bikes.
He knew we both. Yeah, he knew I was into Harleys. We both rode, and so that was kind of, it made sense for both of us. I was an asset to them, and they were an asset to me, and that was kind of what opened the doorway for that. Yeah,
like you were kind of like coming around, and then sooner or later you're just a part of it.
Well, so there's definitely a process. Yeah, I mean it's a whole deal. I mean, so you start around with kind of a hang around phase where and that can, there are lifelong hangarounds. Like there are people that, they'll just use you until you finally get the picture that they're never going to let you in.
Is that like prospecting, or that's before even prospecting?
That's before prospecting. Yeah. So hanging around is what it sounds like you're just around, and so it's in a lot of ways, it's almost any other career, right? You start doing what it is that you're aspiring to be. And so you pick up trash, you wipe down bikes, you stand guard. I mean, whatever it is they call you or tell you to do, you just start doing it. And you show that commitment that you're there all the time, that you're showing up whenever they're meeting, that you're going on the runs when they're going on runs. And so then somebody, a member will formally say, hey, I'm putting him in as a prospect, and then they'll vote on that. So it's very democratic, very structured and organized. I can definitely give kudos to them in that regard. And so you start out with a hang around, then if you're fortunate enough, you'll get a prospect. So most clubs, that means you'll get a bottom rocker. And that's it. There'll be nothing else attached with it. So you have a bottom rocker and an MC patch, but you won't have the logo or the center patch if it's a 3-piece club. Now again, this is more from the outlaw one percenter club perspective, versus some of the other, you have RCs or other MCs that are a lot more relaxed or laid back, not really on the criminal side of things, or willing to actually die for the patch. But the one that I was around was a 1%er club.
So being in California, I feel like seeing people on the freeways or whatever with different rockers is like fairly common. Mm. And for most of us, if you're driving down the street and you see a Hell's Angel or like a Mongol drive by, you're kind of like, oh, like that's one of them. But I take it when you're in that culture, it's more of a badge of honor to hang out with some of these clubs rather than like, these guys are kind of scary, or, they're into weapon running or like whatever it is, when you're hanging around it, are they just like normal guys?
Normal and depraved, absolutely. Normal as far as their perspective of culture. I think that the great irony behind all of it is you're really, one of the things that the MC culture has always boasted about is their nonconformity, right? I mean, they're not conforming to the culture, and they do things that are offensive on purpose. That's why a lot of the one percenter clubs, they'll have swastikas and stuff like that. It's not because they're Nazis; it's because other people find it offensive, and they like offending people.
It's like punk rock,
yeah,
in a lot of ways.
And that's the thing. Like you go to all these cultures, and it's literally the same mindset. But the great irony is that you think you're being different, but you're not. You're just to a greater degree than the rest of the world. I mean, apart from the Lord, we're all fallen, we're all depraved, and so we're all in rebellion against the actual normative standard, who is Christ or Adam pre-fall. And so that's always kind of made me chuckle looking back a little bit, because you're like, oh, we're so different, and I'm not going to be like the culture that I'm around. But dude, you're exactly like the culture that you're around. You're just expressing it in a different way.
Yeah, I feel that way looking back on a lot of the cultures I was a part of. We thought we were like, poetic and different, and you look back and you're like, no, not really.
Yeah.
Like in a lot of ways, like they have parties.
Runs, weekly, they call it church. That's I always thought that's funny too. So, and met on Sundays. But we'd have our club meetings on Sundays. We'd have runs. So whether it would a run that we're putting on, so a run just being a ride from one place to another, one party to another. Or we'd go to other runs. We'd hang out with other clubs and support them. And so you have kind of that larger community, but even there too, I mean, it's just, one person sticking their chest out further than the other. And again, there is a hierarchy for sure in the clubs, and the one percenter world is it's that level playing field of other one percenter clubs, but there are definitely those that have more dominance, that have more prestige. I mean, I think if you can go to pretty much anywhere in the world and people will know who the Hells Angels are. But at this point, the Mongols are about at that status too. And so there's definitely a pride that comes with that. I mean, you get that response from people, that people are either kind of sketched out about you, or they're afraid of you, or they just know to leave you alone. But either way, you're provoking a response from somebody else that is, them being fearful of your violence or dominance, or at least the reputation that precedes you from that. And that's kind of why the patch is really the god of those organizations. The patch comes first, period. I mean, if your patch is ever taken from you, depending on the club or even the chapter of the club you're in, the consequences can vary broadly. I mean, I've seen men that they've done that and they've been brutally jumped out of the club and no longer a part of it, just because they simply forgot that. I mean, not even got it taken, but left it somewhere. So the patch is the idol. That's the god that you're serving, is the patch. And that's well known, I mean, you'll do whatever it takes to defend the patch.
And you were sergeant at arms?
Yes, sir. Yeah, at one point. Yeah.
So you were in it.
Yeah.
As far as the physical side of it.
Yeah.
You guys don't know, Chris is like, what are you, 6'3", 6'4"? Yeah. He's a big dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to have you sicked on me. But when you're doing some of the enforcement stuff, you got to go handle business. Morally, are you able, does military come in handy in that?
Oh, yeah, because this is mission.
You just separate I don't need to think about this. I have a job to do. I'm going to go handle it. And 100%. They brought it on themselves.
Yep, yeah. Because generally speaking, those people have entered into whatever agreements they had with the club, or whether it was money or drug or prostitution related, whatever it was, they knew what they were getting into. So it's just a natural consequence if you failed to hold up your end of the deal.
I've heard this from other people that were involved in any sort of gang culture, where it's like, our objective is not necessarily, the news will like try and glorify we're attacking random people. He's like, no, like most of the time our business is with other people in gangs, or with people in our gang that have been out of line.
Yep.
And that's the rationalization, is like, hey, we all signed up for this.
Right.
So if you did something stupid, you should have known better. Like, you should have taken this more serious.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've seen more violence committed towards other brothers in the same club honestly, than I have outside of it. I mean, just for various things, whatever it may be. But if each club has bylaws, and those laws stand. And if you violate those laws, there are consequences for it.
It should be so not shocking to us that this is where we go every time.
Yeah.
Like every single time. And so like people like to watch like Gangland or something like that. And like, oh, I want to learn about the Bloods and the Crips or the Hells Angels or the whatever, there's a million different ones. And people are really intrigued by that. You go, wow, how does this all happen? And like you guys already said, like this is default.
Yeah.
It's like sin enters in. Yeah. What's the next thing? The sons.
Yeah.
One kills the other one.
Right.
Because of jealousy.
Well, even before that,
and pride.
Adam blaming Eve and Eve blaming
Right, exactly.
So
immediately right at the fall.
Yeah. Who can I blame this on that's not me?
Exactly. Blame shift, hide, deceive.
Right.
And it's like, oh man. So it's like, why would we be surprised that we end up in these places?
Right.
And that's why there's a lot of like, people don't really want to open up about where they're coming from. Like, oh, I don't want it to sound bad. Or it's like, this is common to man.
Yeah.
Like that's what's been cool about this podcast is we've been able to like get into people's like real stories, and we've always tried to push it as raw. And I know you're doing that, and you will continue to do that. But like that, this is the story of man without God.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a gang scene or in the church without God.
Yeah.
Like this is what we do.
Yeah.
And so
I was even telling Brad earlier, right after service this morning, the beautiful thing about testimony, because you have both extremes, right? You have people with backgrounds like mine or the other guys or yourselves that the Lord has just done these radical new birth in. I mean, there's no doubt that this was God because there's no other explanation for it, period. But then you have those people that are like, well, I came to Christ when I was 6 years old and I've just followed him faithfully till then. And they're like, well, I don't really have a testimony. It's still God's story. Like that's God's story. And the same blood that covered me covered you. So don't mitigate or minimize what the Lord has done. Because for me, with my background and having lived in rebellion and at enmity with God for so many years, I'm blown away at people that have that testimony of, I've walked faithfully with Christ since I was 7 years old. It's like, praise the Lord, man. Like what a testimony to his keeping you and his sustaining you and drawing you into himself. I mean, that to me is just gives God all the glory that a testimony like yours or mine does. So,
and then that's the thing too, but your identity is not a good little boy or a good little girl.
Right.
It's still in the need of the grace of God.
Exactly.
The blood of Jesus. Yeah. So that's the difference. Right. It's like you still recognize your need for that. And it's like, you don't have to have a horror story at the end of this to know that you're a sinner in need of grace.
Absolutely.
And to know that you are capable of doing really bad stuff, whether you do it or not.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all have like kids. Mm-hmm. And Chris and I have talked about this probably 3 other times on this podcast of like, man, like I don't want my son to have a story like mine.
No, gosh.
If he just knows who God is his whole life, that's awesome. When I spoke to the youth group out at Fallbrook, that's one thing I was trying to communicate is like, when you tell these wild stories, there's always the like, oh, but then you figured it out. It's like, I had a lot of friends die. Not everyone, like, you don't want to test God's grace like that.
Mm-hmm. No.
And I remember I had a friend who's walked his whole life, and he said to me one night, we were hanging out, and he's like, yeah, sometimes I wish like I had some years where I got to like just have fun. And I'm like, some years to just be in bondage.
Right.
That's what that was.
Oh, that's a dangerous.
Wrapped up in bondage, man. Like those weren't fun years.
You're in a dangerous place saying stuff like that.
Don't glamorize that, man. Yeah.
It was like, I hated it the whole time. Yeah. I wasn't having fun.
You're miserable.
Yeah. I had my fun and then the fun ran out. And
that
then I was just trapped.
That goes back to
it.
the counterfeit, right? I mean, that was that subtle lie that was able to be planted in your friend's head to say, well, you missed out a little bit. God's had you, but he also robbed you of this. It's like, no, man, like that's not it. That's not it at all.
How does your time in the club go? Like, are you fulfilled in what you're doing? Are you having a good time, or are you still?
I thought I was at the time, but at the same time, still miserable. Like we just said, I was. By the time I retired, I was using drugs, pushing drugs. At that point, I had done all sorts of different dirt for the club, all just trying to make a name for myself, just wanting to boast up myself. I wanted to have that reputation. The crazy thing about when you're in a club or a gang or any culture like that is to the outside world, you're already this, kind of nasty, violent criminal. And so you put that off to others, but then you have to make a name for yourself inside the club. You have to have that reputation within the club of even a hierarchy of, I'm in this club, but I ain't going to mess with that dude because I know that he's done this, 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 and this. And I really think that's what propels people forward. It gets them into jail. That gets them, to lose their lives in a gunfight or those sorts of things, because they're trying to take it one step further. And that was one of the things that we even always said in the club is what set us apart is that I know I'm willing to go one step further than the next person.
Wow.
And that was really what set it apart. I mean, for me at that point, I didn't care about living or dying. I'd already had that programming done during my time overseas, where it's like, whatever, I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. If they get me, then they get me. That's just how the game goes. And so that translated over into the MC culture. So I was always looking for those opportunities to go one step further than the next person that would make me stand out to the next person, that would help me move up in rank.
So are you, at this point, have you met Amanda?
So I first got into the club scene when I was still married to my ex-wife. And then a couple years after that point, we had separated, gotten a divorce, and then I met Amanda. But yeah, so Amanda has been in the culture with me as well. And, going back to what you said about our kids, that's one of the things that she and I have prayed, religiously, is that, and we talk to our kids about all the time, like God was so gracious in that they got to see the transformation, because by the time I retired, Amanda was still in for 3 more years and we were still here. I was still, at that point, all the restrictions were taken off, because in the Marine Corps, I had to be somewhat cautious about things, because if I did get nicked or locked up, that goes to my command. And then it was already an automatic discharge if I was found out to be in the club that I was in. They were on a no-fly list. So there were already those parameters that were somewhat restricting on me. But then once I was out, I was out. I could do whatever I wanted at that point. Amanda to this day says, I know that he would have been in jail or dead, one of the two, because I've never been someone that just dips his toe into try the waters and see it.
No,
it's like,
no, you're not.
I'm going to do this.
You're all in, man.
And then I'm in.
Yeah.
And that was to my detriment, obviously, BC days. But now, to the glory of God, it's been so rewarding. And he's used that attribute in my nature for his glory and for my good. So it's been awesome.
Are there a lot of past military service guys that are hanging around the clubs?
Very much so. Yeah, especially in SoCal, this area, but even on the East Coast too. I mean, very, very much so. A large majority of veterans. But on the other side of that too, for the West Coast, I can say even the culture is different. So with the same club, same patch, but on the East Coast, it's more the stereotypical older, fat, long beard, white guys riding in a club together. They hang out, drink. They might sell some drugs or something here or there. But where on this side of the coast, it's definitely more of that a gangbanger on a bike type vibe.
Okay.
And they're about their business and getting things done. And so you definitely still do have that aspect of it, to where it's not necessarily all military background, but even those kids that have been scooped up off the corner, depending upon what area or what neighborhood. So if you're in Los Angeles or
a lot of the Mongols were.
Yeah, a majority of the Mongols now, definitely more of that street culture than it is just the strict MC world. Like I can remember dudes coming in and hanging around that had no experience on a bike at all, but they were willing to do dirt. And so the bikes were provided, they were taught how to ride, and then you're brought into it. So even within it, there's a different culture depending upon which side of the country you're on.
Kind of interesting. I imagine part of the structure they have it set up in too, how you got to hang out, you got to be invited to prospect, then you got to like put in your time, and then they decide if they want you in, is also figuring out who they can trust. Because once you get in and you learn about a lot more of the inner workings, I mean, that can compromise the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like sometimes some of these organizations, the feds are after. Or,
I mean, that's one thing I can say about the MC culture is you don't have to question who's in what club. I mean, it's expressed very clearly. And I've had my, mug shot taken with a sheet hanging on the back of a CHP car more times than I can count,
wow.
And that was one of those areas where you start to see the profiling, you start to see the prejudice, but at the same time, on the flip side of that, they're trying to do their job. They're trying to figure things out. But there's always any of those institutions. There's always eyes. I mean, I can't remember going to a run anywhere in SoCal, except maybe to Purdue a couple of times where we didn't get pulled over and inspected and pictures taken.
Purdue, they're just like, yeah, man,
yeah,
you guys do whatever you want. Man.
but everywhere else, I mean, as far as San Diego County and everywhere, sheriff's office or CHP numerous times. I mean, I've had sheriff's officers behind me on the freeway, but because they don't have jurisdiction on the highway, they would wait till I took an exit and then they'd pull me over because they had jurisdiction there. They could do it. So, I mean, you definitely start to get the vibe of you're always being watched. There's always eyes on you. So I think with the MC community, there's definitely that seems to be a little more prevalent than even some of the others that are more guerrilla warfare tactic as far as they're blending in with the rest of the people around them.
I would imagine that probably makes people lean in harder too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where if you're going to be kind of like opposed like that, then you're like, well, I might as well,
I think
be all in on this.
I think some MC guys are more schooled on the laws of the Constitution of the land than lawyers are. Because, I mean, I can remember.
And some of them are lawyers.
Oh, yeah. I can remember getting pulled over. I mean, I even had a sticker. We had stickers made on our bikes that was literally a Miranda law saying, like, I don't consent for you to search my person. I don't consent for you to take my photo. I don't consent for all that, so that you actually had that as backup if things were pushed or you actually caught charges, but you were pulled over for no violation or just a suspect. So you definitely start to learn how to adapt and overcome those things.
Especially if you've done tours overseas and you come back and you're trying to find your place in the world and start hanging out with these guys, and it's like, this is it.
Yep.
Where else would I want to be?
Yeah.
How does God find you in this place? Like, how does that transition start to happen?
So the club I was in had originally been established so that it would be absorbed by a bigger club. A lot of times they'll do that in an effort to test the guys, or also to use to do dirt that they're technically not attached to. And so we had reached that point to where we were going to be absorbed by a bigger club, and I was full on for that. Like that's what I'd been working up to, had aspired to, even like I spoke about earlier as a child, had formed a lot of good relationships with guys in there, and so had made somewhat of a name for myself. I at least had the respect of some of the bigger guys in the organization, and so that was really where I was headed. I was retired at that point, so I was wrenching. I had our three youngest kids at home.
You have 5 kids.
Yeah, we've got 5.
We should note.
So I had our 3 youngest, and we had our newborn. She was not even a year old at that point.
Oh, wow.
And so I was watching the kids at home while also wrenching on club guys' bikes and doing work like that for them too, and pushing stuff on the side. And then at night when Amanda would finally get home, then I would go out and hang with the club and do whatever we were doing that day. And it was an Easter Sunday. It was coming up, and my wife's mom has been in Calvary Chapel, sat under Chuck Smith. I mean, she was kind of on the tail end of the Jesus Revolution that took place, and that Chuck Smith really started everything with those guys. And so she's been in the church since then, and very prayerful woman, very reverent, loves the Lord. Still has her same struggles like we all do, but she was always faithful and always asked us to come visit them up in Los Angeles at the Calvary they were going to. They were at Calvary Chapel, Signal Hill at that point, and she had been asking my wife, for us to come for a few weeks, and I kept putting it off. I had no desire to go to it or anything. Was totally good with where I was at and what I was hoping was going to come and patching into this other club and moving up in the world as I saw it. And eventually she twisted my arm enough I agreed to go. And we went up there that Easter Sunday morning and had all our kids and sat in there, and it was James Cadiz was the pastor at the time. I think he's still the pastor at Signal Hill right now. Was preaching out of Romans, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was Romans 3:28. But he had laid out the gospel. He had, really gone through the holiness of God and the depravity of man and our need to repent and turn to Him and confess Christ as Lord. But kept echoing the statement that your body's a death trap. Your body's a death trap. Your body's a death trap. That's all I can remember, like explicitly from the message, was him laying that out and saying that your body is a death trap, and this is where you're going in it. This is where that coffin's going to take you if you don't repent and turn to Christ. And I didn't have like that, super emotional experience where I, came up front or anything like that. We left and went to lunch at like a Subway. And so they had like little tables. And so I ended up sitting by myself and was just kind of sitting there, kind of like spaced out, not really even, thinking about anything explicitly that I can remember. And then we got back in the car to come home. So we're on the 405 freeway, pretty bad traffic as usual. And a rival club member pulled up beside us in our car. And normally my response would have been, here's XYZ, how I can get kudos with the club. And my interaction with him wouldn't have been a friendly one. And instead of that thought coming through my head, the only thing that I could think of was, wow, it's a really nice day out today. He must be enjoying his ride. And that immediately was like, what happened? Like, what just happened?
Wow.
Why am I viewing this person that, before automatically, even with my wife and kids in the car, would have been a violent response, to now just like, oh, dude looks like he's having a good day. This is totally radical response to that. And I remember looking over at my wife like, honey, I think I'm saved. Like I think I'm saved. And as we kept going down the road, I'm like, Jesus is alive. Like I can remember just echoing in my head, Jesus is alive. Jesus is alive. Jesus is alive. Well, what does that mean for me that Jesus is alive? And then getting home, and I had a guy that was staying with us at the time, who was a hang-around, and he was sleeping on our couch in the garage, and told him about everything. I'm like, yo, dude, like, Jesus is alive, man. Like, I think, we've got to follow this dude and figure out what's going on and where this is leading. And I can remember sitting down with him the next day, I think, and being like, all right, we're going to do a Bible study. Totally just like made there like
right in.
There's no other explanation other than God having done this work. And sitting down with him, and like we would literally sit there, like for 45 minutes, hour, 2 hours each day, and like read scripture. I'm like, all right, what do you think that means? Like, what? Just had no idea.
Just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no bearing to what we were doing or what it meant. And, my wife at that point, we'd already been through so much, and she had, been in that life with me and knew, she just thought it was like, whatever, like it's not going to last. It's just something that he's thinking or whatever, and that'll be it. But, it was within the week. I called my sponsor from the club that I was looking to patch into, and told him, I was like, look, dude, Jesus got a hold of me. I view him as my Lord and Savior now, and I don't think these two things mesh very well with each other. So, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a pastor.
Whoa.
And so I got to part ways with you, and that's always kind of been the big question that people ask me. Well, how did you get out? How did you get out? Because, it's notorious. It depends on which club you're in or what chapter too, how that process can work. And, God in his mercy, the guy that I was talking to responded, he's like, it's stuck with me. It's so weird. I don't know another word to put on it other than just weird. Because he said, I'm proud of you and I love you. Don't ever call me again. And that was the end of it.
Wow. Dude, that's wild.
So cool.
Yeah.
Were you nervous to make that call?
Yes and no. Again, being one of those people where if I'm in it, I'm in it. So I knew I didn't have a choice. So it was one of those things where, like, what's the point of being nervous or scared about it? Because it'll be what it's going to be. And, I've taken beatings before, if that's what it's going to call for, or if it's more than that, then it'll be more than that. But at that point, I think I just I had faith, and I was going to follow that faith, and I was going to trust that was what I had to do.
Wow.
And so just did it. And that was the response.
You knew that early on you were going to be a pastor too, which you are a pastor now.
Yeah.
There's so many like times where people think, I just can't go. There's like, I wish I could, but it's like, you just can't limit like what God can do.
Yeah.
I also think like, because you were so honest and straight about it, like if someone really cares for you, they're pumped to see what like you do something better.
Right.
And
I think that was his response, because I had grown a really close relationship with this individual and had spent a lot of time with him. And he had gotten out of lockup maybe a year prior to that. And so I had really spent that last year since being out, being around him, learning from him, learning the ropes, learning how to play the game and succeed in it. And so I think he did have a genuine love for me. I mean, I still have pictures of him washing our oldest daughter's feet in the kitchen sink. Like, I mean, and I've shown that to her. Like, you have no idea who this person is or what they're affiliated with. And but I mean, they were in our home, and we did have a genuine affection and care for one another. And so I think that was really God's way of making that process less painful, because he was somebody who was high enough up with enough say so that he could keep anyone else from interfering or making that an issue. And that's what he did. So
that's such a good word of encouragement, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, for people who are like, oh, I wish I could make the right decision, but I just can't. There's, you know what? It's just too dangerous, or it's just too this, or it's just too that. It's like if he can part seas, if he can raise the dead, he can take care of that.
And that's ultimately it. We have such our God's too small. We have such a small view of God, but actually sit down and look through God's redemptive plan in history as given to us in his word and in the scriptures. If you can rightly identify with Christ as your Lord and Savior, as the great I am, being the one true living God, and you're following him, just do what he asks you to do.
That's the children of Israel story.
I mean, it's
like whenever they like obey,
right,
and they trust God,
trust and obey,
he like takes care of it, right. And as soon as they stop and they start making their own gods, it's like all the stuff falls on them, because he's like, no, you're my people, and so I'm gonna let all this junk overwhelm you,
right? Yeah.
Or if you can trust me, I will blow your mind. There's story after story of, I want you to know what I can do, and then they forget. Well, and it's like that's us. It's so easy for we insert ourselves into that.
Well, and even knowing him, I mean, if you believe that God is immutable, he doesn't change, that he's infinitely wise, good, loving, caring, compassionate, omniscient, he knows everything. If you truly believe that, then what's the greatest gift that God can give us? The greatest gift that God can give us is himself. And so you have people that will kind of, what sounds, a little egotistical. Paul Washer has a great word on this. I heard at the conference in January, but if we were the center of the story, then that elevates us over God. That gives us the glory versus God receiving the glory. Whereas, as Jonathan Edwards famously pointed, the end to which everything God does is for his own glory. He says it throughout the Old Testament. I'm doing this for my name's sake. I'm doing this for my reputation. And even Moses, when he finally intercedes on behalf of the people, what does he do? Well, this is for your name, Lord. Your reputation is going to be slandered if you don't do what you've sown to do. What, you brought us all the way out here just to kill everybody?
Yep.
You can't do that,
right?
Because then what are the Egyptians going to think about you? Right. What are these people going to think? What kind of God are you just to bring us out and slaughter us all? And so
then he renews his covenant.
He renews the covenant, and he continues to show his faithfulness to fulfill what he's doing. We've been walking through Genesis with our kids in family worship time, and man, it's just so beautiful when you finally start to understand the covenants and you just see the gospel in every single chapter. I mean, we're at chapter 37 now with the kids, and every single one. Yeah, you just got to Joseph, and every single one, you see the gospel on display. You see God's grace. You see that it has nothing to do with you and me or what we're capable of. It's always been about him. It's always been about our treasuring Christ above all else. And for me in our walk and where our family's at right now, that's been the greatest gift of all, is that coming to the realization that we're his and he's ours. That's where life is actually found. That's where you find peace and power and assurance. And I'm just blessed that was part of my how God made me to be someone who's all in these things and don't teeter or dance around. It's like, okay, this is what you want me to do, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out how to do it to the best of my ability and in accordance with your will and word, and do it for your glory, Lord.
So I think there's a lot of value in just everything we're unpacking right now, just all the dynamics and where God found you and where God's going to bring you. So we're going to divide this into a part 1 and part 2, just so that we can really explore these things and not have to condense them. So thanks for tuning in, and we hope you're going to join us for part 2 next week, where we really dive into everything that God has done with Chris since that Easter morning when he accepted the gospel. Thanks for tuning in to the Voyager Podcast. If you'd like to reach out, you can reach us through Instagram at the Voyager Podcast. We hope this has been encouraging for you. Until next time.